everyone. Welcome to another Bella TV segment. I am joined by the beautiful Brooke Butler. Brooke, you are currently starring in the hit action thriller A Day to Die, alongside Bruce Willis, Frank Grillo, Kevin Dillon. I have to say, I watched it, and it was from the second you turn it on, nonstop action, heart pounding, really. So why don't you just start by introducing yourself to our audience and give us a little bit about the movie without giving too much away for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Hi, I'm Brooke Butler. I play Candace. I'm Kevin Dillon's wife, and I am kidnapped at the beginning with some other things going on with me that you'll have to watch to see. And my husband has 24 hours to collect $2 million or else I will die and potentially something else.
Yeah, lots of little secrets and twists and turns.
Right.
I love any good action thriller. So not only, were you working with these mega actors on this project, but you were the only leading lady.
Yeah.
So congrats. And also, I mean, what was it like not only working with, these guys, but also being the only leading lady? I mean, I'm sure it was exciting. Was it like a huge responsibility as well?
Sure, a little bit of both. I grew up with brothers, so being around a bunch of men was kind of home to me. They would always tease me. So growing up, I learned how to deal with it all. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of iconic action star men in this movie, which was such a blessing. But coming into it, when I spoke to the director, Wes Miller, it was extremely important to me as the only lead female in it to not be the victim and to be strong.
Yes.
Because I knew I was carrying the weight of all the women in this film. And at the same time, she's the heart. If you don't care for her and want her to survive, this whole mission doesn't work for the audience. So there is a balance there between, she really represents the innocence of the movie. And so maintaining that while also fighting for her life and being strong enough to also stand up to what's going on, which is also very socially relevant.
I love that. I mean, you were great in it. And you've actually been acting since you were in high school, professionally while you're in school. So how did that come about? I mean, how did you know what, I want to be an actress and I'm going to go after it even now at such a young age?
Without sounding cliche, I think it was one of those things that I always knew I wanted to do from when I was little. I think my parents took me to see Phantom of the Opera at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle when I was 5. And I'm sitting in the front row crying at 5 years old. And I said to my mom, I'm crying because I want to make people feel how Christine made me feel. So for me, it was always less about me and more about, this is such a great platform to make people feel something, to make people think. And I think our director, Wes Miller, did such a great job in this movie, because what people are seeing right now are action films, but underneath that, so it gets people in the chairs, they get the popcorn, but there's also a lot to think about when you watch this movie. It's a group of people that are all flawed, and they're from different political backgrounds, different social economic backgrounds, and they have to choose to come together, choose who to trust, and they all have a common goal. So there's a lot to think about in this movie, more than just action. I think the genre of action just gets you in the seat.
No, and I was reading, in addition to acting at a younger age, you were also a soccer player, and oriented not only the arts, but sports as well. And obviously, made the decision to pursue acting. Was that a tough one for you, or did you know acting would outweigh?
It was really tough. I was really huge into sports when I was younger. I would dirt bike, I wakeboard, I snow skied. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so everything I did was sports, soccer. I wanted to be Mia Hamm. I was number 9. And then my coach, we had won state, and my coach sat me down and said, you have to choose between soccer and acting. And I was like, oh, it's soccer. And so I got all the way to practice, and I sat there in the car for my first practice of the year, and we practiced 6 days a week and then had games, and I just sat there and I was like, it's acting. And so, and then from there it kind of took off. I ended up being in Les Mis when I was just 13, and never stopped singing, dancing, acting, all of it, and then went to USC theater school, and then it kind of just kept going from there. But I think all those sports that I have in my blood growing up and the muscles that I have is lent itself to being able to do action films and fit into that world with all of these men. Like you have Frank Grillo, you have iconic Bruce Willis. Kevin was so wonderful. We really worked on our connection because that really had to be there. And then working opposite of, Leon, who's, an extremely like menacing presence and, such a strong presence that I was like, oh, I can hold my own. I've been here. I've done this. So
it worked out. It helped.
It worked out so
That's
far.
amazing. Well, and you've also been in, obviously other projects, two of my favorite shows of all time, Ozark, Animal Kingdom. So you're obviously, picking really great roles, at least I would like to think so. Do you have a favorite, or is there a genre you like doing most? Any?
Oh, that's a tough question because I think we're all such dynamic humans, right? Everyone's upbringing is different. What people look like is different. And so I just love being other people, doing this interview, being like, oh, I have to be Brooke. Well, what does that mean? I can go sit down with a script and create another person. My friends call me the question asker because when I meet a new person, I'm like, oh, are you going to marry them? And everyone around me is like, don't ask those questions, but I love getting to know what makes people tick. Yeah. And so I did love Ozark. I loved the grittiness of it. Lisa Emery, who plays Darlene, and I was the younger version of her. She comes from Broadway, which I respect tremendously. So it was very important for me to perfect her walk, the way she spoke, the accent she created. They made my hair dishwater color. I wore no makeup. I just really loved the grittiness of that. But I also love, running around doing an action scene, trying to hit Leon over the head with a hammer. But then there's another part of me, a project that I'm working on that I can't speak about yet, but that's a complete departure from all of that and more dramatic. And it's essentially, about a girl who could die at any second. And so anything that can make you feel and has something to say means everything to me.
Yeah. So are there any projects that you can tell us about that you have coming up? Anything that's not so secret?
I just had 3 movies come out in a row. I did Creepshow, and then I had Lantern's Lane come out, and then I was in a play called Famous, and takes place in 1994 and touches upon the Me Too movement, and it's kind of an ode to River Phoenix and some of the things he went through. And then we turned that play into a feature that just came out, and then I had Day to Die, and now I have 2 projects that I'm looking at. One I may be singing in. But yeah, I just kind of try to keep it a little bit of everything so you don't get bored, and wherever there's a story there to tell, that's the most important thing to me. And I think every character, actually Helena Bonham Carter said this, she says every character she chooses to do, it's because she knows that character is going to teach her something. And I can strongly say every character I've done, I walk out learning, like I learned something from Candace, or I learned something, when I worked on Ozark, or I learned something when I was my character on Famous. And that just continues to build and layer you for the next thing.
Well, you're definitely staying busy, and congrats on everything you have going on. Why don't you let our audience know where they can catch A Day to Die, where they can follow along with you and just keep up on everything you have?
Sure, you can watch it anywhere on demand, Apple TV. It will be on a streaming platform in June. I don't believe I'm allowed to say which one yet. But it's also in select theaters, and you can follow me at Brookie Serene on Instagram. Serene is my middle name for people that think I've made that up.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And again, congrats. The movie was great. If you haven't seen it yet, check out A Day to Die. starring Brooke Butler.
Thank you so much.